engine now! You see that? There's a dog driving that thing!
I see it, but I don't believe it.
Welcome to our episode of Barrington Saturdays, and this week I decided to take a look at the old 587, the Great Train Robbery, or 587, the Great Train Robbery for short. And I'll admit, this one's hard to be super critical of. I mean, well, you could argue the last film we talked about, Gulliver's Travels, the previous week, was should be given a bit of mercy because it's just that old, from 1939, that it just doesn't sit as well with modern audiences, over 80 years later. This film, on the other hand, is from 2000, so it's newer, but was made by locals. So this film features, a bunch of local people that aren't trained actors. So the fact they just sound like they're reciting their lines,
She can still pull a good load.
shouldn't be held against them as much. So yeah, the film's acting is awful from both the adult and kid actors for the most part. Like, it's hard to point to anything I really like about this film, because even their attempts at jokes oftentimes fall flat.
Say, who are you anyway?
Radio, R-A-D-O, radio.
Is this one of those radio station gags?
You're on live with WICUP.
Why, that's my favorite station. Listen to it all the time. I'm on the radio. ICUP. Have you heard of it?
UPIC?
No. ICUP. You know?
Is that some kind of French toilet thing?
You're on radio, R-A-D-O, radio.
Time for another commercial break. And for all the fans of ICUP, thanks for watching.
And yeah, they use that joke a whole lot. Like, it keeps coming back over and over and over again. I know there's a rule of threes, but yeah, that only works if the joke was at least funny the first time. Ugh. It definitely ain't gonna work any better when you try doing it for like the fourth time. At any rate, outside of my complaints about some of the very bad attempts at comedy, I mean, I realize I shouldn't be throwing too many stones about that joke anyway, considering, I have a run-through 7 Dragon with Team 4P, so I'm not above making such a crass joke myself. Just, I acknowledge it sucks, but it was a running gag. That's terrible. And I can't stop making it. At any rate, the plot line of our film is that these kids, are doing a gravity race with some boxcars, and one of them, goes like 40 miles per hour, supposedly, allegedly, and crashes into a wooden fence and lands, in a scrapyard that's nearby. And he notices the 587, an old steam engine, that's due to be scrapped in a couple days because, well, there was a museum interested in acquiring it, but they just couldn't pay for the water, fuel, and I guess clearances for it to travel to the museum. So it's going to be scrapped instead, which upsets some of the kids after they see it because they're like, it's a working engine, it's a work of art, it's a beauty, we gotta save it. So they team up with its old conductor who works in the scrapyard, is just living in what's left of the steam engine or a car nearby. And eventually he agrees to help them, get the train all the way down to the museum. So he agrees to help take part in a Great Train Robbery. And despite the fact the switch, out of the yard is rusted, they apparently still manage to flip it and they're on their way, in the middle of the night. And along the way, of course, they run out of water to make steam, and some local kids help them, form a bucket line, get water out of the river, and fill up the steam engine's tanks, and off they go again. Only now they're almost going to run into another oncoming train that has a conductor that's not paying attention because he's too busy, rocking out on a headset. So attempts to contact him to get him to stop just don't work out. So eventually the train has to call the cell phone of one of the kids, like head-on collision, warning and stuff like that. And the old man kicks them off and manages just barely make it into a branched line, I guess, to avoid the head-on collision with the other guy acting all relieved. I'm just like, man, I'm surprised why you're acting so relieved, because you're probably going to be getting in deep trouble for failing to pick up when they called you. Like, what are you going to tell them? That, it didn't work or it broke during travel? Good luck with those explanations, I guess. At any rate, they eventually make it to the museum where the police are waiting for them because they're like, we know where you're going. Like, we saw satellite photos. We heard the rumors you're going to try and come here. And they're like, tell the old man, is like, we should arrest you for all these crimes you've committed. But first, let's thank you for bringing this train to the this steam engine to the museum. And then he gets taken off on a gurney because after the almost crash happens, I guess he has like a heart attack. Or stroke, so he has to let the kid drive the train, the rest of the way. It's like, this is the throttle, this is the brake, now I'm gonna have to lay down for a bit, because that was just too much for my old heart. But it all works out, I suppose, in the end. But yeah, like, the acting is not very top-notch here, and I imagine any adult watching this film would basically have to be, just taking the piss out of the film while drinking or something, like MSTKing it. But I can see it probably appealing to little kids more. I've definitely seen comments, about the movie where people talk about how their kids enjoyed the film. I mean, I can understand it. I mean, we are seeing an old steam engine in action. I mean, what's the same sort of appeal of, like, Thomas the Tank Engine, right? And my brother was a big fan of Thomas the Tank Engine, my youngest brother. Like, he had toys and had a light switch box cover, for his light switch that was Thomas the Tank Engine. Like, he was so obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine, our parents actually took us all out to a train museum just so he could ride a train that had been gussied up to look like Thomas the Tank Engine on the outside, for a short trip. And we also stuck around and looked at, the trains and stuff and crushed some coins, with the name of the museum on them. So I guess that was a nice trip down memory lane for me a bit from the film, but at the same time, I'm not going to lie, this is not a film you're probably going to enjoy that much as an adult, just because the quality of the acting just really isn't there. And unless, like I said, you're just taking the mickey out of the film for being what it is. But, don't be too mean. I mean, these are locals just, trying to show off their acting chops. It's just, they don't really have any. Until next time, then. See ya.
Russell Stockman for robbery, kidnapping, transporting goods across state lines. I should lock you up.
But first, let me thank you and welcome you to the Steam City Museum.